What keeps you up at night? Pondering deep questions? Excitement about a big trip? Or is it stress about unfinished work, an upcoming test, or a dreaded family gathering? For many people, the stress is temporary as its cause is quickly resolved. But what if the very thing keeping you awake was stress about losing sleep? This seemingly unsolved loop is at the heart of insomnia, the world's most common sleep disorder. Almost anything can cause the occasional restless night, a snoring partner, physical pain, or emotional distress. And extreme sleep deprivation, like jet lag, can throw off your biological clock, wreaking havoc on your sleep schedule. But in most cases, sleep deprivation in short term, eventually exhaustion, catches up with all of us. However, some long-term conditions like respiratory disorders, gastrointestinal problems, and many others can overpoint fatigue. And as sleeplessness night builds up, the bedroom can start to carry association of restless nights, wreaking with anxiety. Come bedtime, insomnias are stressed. So stressed, their brain hijacked the stress response system, flooding the body with fight, flight, or freeze chemicals. Cortisol and adrenocorticotropical hormones course through the bloodstream, increasing heart rate and blood pressure, and jolting the body into hyperarousal. In this condition, the brain is hunting for potential threats, making it impossible to ignore any slight discomfort or nighttime noise. And when insomniacs finally do fall asleep, the quality of the rest is compromised. Our brain's primary source of energy is cerebral glucose. And in health sleep, our metabolism slows to conserve this glucose of waking hours. But the PET studies show the adrenaline that prevents sleep for insomniacs also sleeps up their metabolism. While they sleep, their bodies are working overtime, burning through the brain's supply of energy-giving glucose. This symptom of poor sleep leaves insomniacs waking in a state of exhaustion, confused, and stress, which starts the process all over again. When these cycles of stress and restlessness last several months, they're diagnosed as chronic insomnia. And while insomnia rarely leads to death, its chemical mechanisms are similar to anxiety attacks found in those experiencing depression and anxiety. So suffering from any of these conditions increases your risk of experiencing the other two. Fortunately, there are ways to break the cycle of sleeplessness. Managing the stress that leads to hyperarousal is one of our best understood treatments for insomnia. And good sleep practices can help rebuild your relationship with bedtime. Make sure your bedroom is dark and comfortably cooled to minimize threats during hyperarousal. Only use your bed for sleeping, and if it's restless, leave the room and tire yourself out with relaxing activities like reading, relaxing, or journaling. Regulate your metabolism by setting consistent resting and waking times to help orient your body's biological clock. This clock or circadian rhythm is also sensitive to light, so avoid bright light at night to help tell your body that it's time for sleep. In addition to these practices, some doctors prescribe medication to aid sleep, but there ain't real medications that help in all cases, and over-the-counter sleeping pills can be highly addictive, leading to withdrawal that worsens symptoms. But before seeking any treatment, make sure your sleeplessness is actually due to insomnia. Approximately 8% of patients diagnosed with chronic insomnia are actually suffering from a less common genetic problem called delay sleep phase disorder, or DCPD. People with DCPD have a circadian rhythm significantly longer than 24 hours, putting their sleeping habits out of sync with traditional sleeping hours. So while they have difficulty falling asleep at a typical bedtime, it's not due to increased stress, and given the opportunity, they can sleep comfortably on their own delay schedule. Our sleeping and waking cycle is a delicate balance, and one that's vital to maintain for our physical and mental well-being. For all these reasons, it's worth putting in some time and effort to sustain a stable bedtime routine, but try not to lose any sleep over it. In 1965, 17-year-old high school student Randy Gardner stayed awake for 264 hours, that's 11 days, to see how he'd cope without sleep. On the second day, his eyes stopped focusing. Next, he lost the ability to identify objects by touch. By day 3, Gardner was moody and uncoordinated. At the end of the experiment, he was struggling to concentrate, had trouble with short-term memory, and became paranoid and started hallucinating. Although Gardner recovered without long-term psychological or physical damage, for adults, losing shut-eye can result in hormonal imbalance, illness, and in extreme cases, death. We're only beginning to understand why we sleep to begin with, but we do know it's essential. Adults need 7 to 8 hours of sleep at night, and adolescents need about 10. We grow sleepy due to signals from our body telling our brain we are tired, and signals from the environment telling us it's dark outside. The rise in sleep-inducing chemicals like adenosine and melatonin send us into a light dose that grows deeper, making our breathing and heart rate slow down and our muscles relax. This non-REM sleep is when DNA is repeated and our bodies replenish themselves for the day ahead. In the United States, it's estimated that 30% of adults and 66% of adolescents are regularly sleep deprived. This isn't just a mere inconvenience. Staying awake can cause serious bodily harm. When we lose sleep, learning, memory, mood, and reaction time are affected. Sleeplessness may also cause inflammation, hallucination, high blood pressure, and it's even been linked to diabetes and obesity. In 2014, a devoted soccer fan died after staying awake for 48 hours to watch the World Cup, while his untimely death was due to a stroke. Studies show that chronically sleeping fewer than 6 hours a night increases stroke risk by 4.5 times, compared to those getting a consistent 7 to 8 hours of shut-eye. For a handful of people on the planet who carry a rare inherited genetic mutation, sleeplessness is a daily reality. This condition, known as fatal familial insomnia, places the body in a night marriage state of wakefulness, forbidding it from entering the sanctuary of sleep within months or years. This progressively worsening condition leads to dementia, to death. How can sleep deprivation cause such immense suffering? Scientists think the answer lies with the accumulation of waste products in the brain during our waking hours. Our cells are busy using up our day's energy sources, which get broken down into various byproducts, including adenosine. As adenosine builds up, it increases the urge to sleep, also known as sleep pressure. In fact, caffeine works by blocking adenosine's receptor pathway. Other waste products also build up in the brain, and if they're not clearly weighed, they collectively overload the brain and are through to lead to many negative symptoms of sleep deprivation. So what's happening in our brain when we sleep to prevent this? Scientists found something called the sympathetic system, a cleanup mechanism that removes this buildup, and it's much more active when we're asleep. It works by using cerebrospinal fluid to flush away toxic byproducts and accumulate between cells. Lymphatic vessels, which serve as pathways for immune cells, have recently been discovered in the brain, and they may also play a role in cleaning our brain's daily waste project. While scientists continue exploring the respiratory mechanism behind sleep, we can be sure that sleeping into slumber is a necessity if we want to minimize our health and sanity.
Insomnia. Insomnia is a common sleep disorder that can make it hard to fall asleep, hard to stay asleep, or cause you to wake up too early and not to be able to get back to sleep. You may still feel tired when you wake up. Insomnia can stop not only your energy level and mood, but also your health, work performance, and quality of life. How much sleep is enough varies from person to person, but most adults need 7 to 8 hours at night. At some point, many adults experience short-term acute insomnia, which lasts for days or weeks. It's usually the result of stress or a traumatic event. But some people have long-term chronic insomnia that lasts for a month or more. Insomnia may be the primary problem, or it may be associated with other medical conditions or medication. You don't have to put up with sleepless nights. Simple changes in your daily habits can often help. Insomnia symptoms may include difficulty falling asleep at night, waking up during the night, waking up too early, not feeling well after a night's sleep, daytime, tiredness or sleepiness, irritability, depression or anxiety, difficulty paying attention, focusing on tasks or remembering, increased errors or accidents, ongoing worries about sleep. When to see a doctor if insomnia makes it hard for you to function during the day. See your doctor to identify the cause of your sleep problem and how it can be treated. If your doctor thinks you could have a sleep disorder, you might be referred to a sleep center for special testing.